Kadosh, Boker Or, Masechet Kiddushin Daf Yomi 14a1. Remember that this week's parasha, Kitetse, actually spoke about the Gitin, everything to do with get. It had to do with the Motzi Shemra. It had to do with Yavam and the Yavama. It had to do everything we were learning, whether it's in Gitin and Kiddushin, this week's parasha. Everything. Yeah? Akol. Yeah? In parasha Kitetse. Says the Gemara, the Pasuk said, yeah, Yavama Yavo Alea. Ulkacha lo leisha. He comes and he says that Yavama will have relations with her. He's going to take her for a wife. What does that mean? Basically, like this. We know this is where we started, right? This is where we're starting. You give me a little bit the last line. It says that Yavama is niknet bebiya, right? The Yavama is going to be acquired through biya. Bebiya mina. How do we know that a Yavama is going to be acquired through biya? The pasuk says Yavama yavo alea. The Yavama will have relations with her, and then what? Ulkacha lo leisha. He's going to take it as a, right, as a wife. So it says the Gemara, what does that mean? Maybe the kesh between Yevama and when it says is the same type of a kesh that even kesef should help, just like shtar and shtarambiyah, meaning just like by a regular woman, you could get married to a regular woman with kesef shtarim biyah. So to here you could get married to Yevama with kesef shtarim biyah, but it says Yevama yavo alea. That's biyah, that's true. But then it says ukachalo leisha as a wife. So it says the Gemara lo tzal kadaitach. We don't think like that. Why? The Tanya, as we learned in a braita, yachol kesef ushtar gomrim ba. What does that mean? Right? I would have thought to say that kesef and shtar, right, are going to be gomer in the Yevama. Just like the biyah, meaning I would have thought to say the kesef and shtar would finish off the kinyan, just like the biyah finishes off the kinyan, right? You understood? Meaning I would have thought to say by Yevama, the biyah starts it. You start with the relations, but then you still need kesef and shtar, and then the kesef and shtar finishes off it finishes off the marriage, just like biyah finishes off the marriage. Right? What do you mean v'ibema? Biya gomeret ba. The relations is what does the entire marriage. The en kesef shtar gomrim ba. It's not the kesef shtar. Meaning by Yevama, it's a special deen that it's relations. And the relations between Yavam and Yevama is what makes her into his wife. Okay? No shtar, no kesef.
Right, that's the best.
Right? So says the Gemara, ve'ema mai v'ibema. Right? The bal kurche miyabem. Says 1 second, why don't you just say v'ibema just means that it can be done bal kurcha? What does that mean? Against her will. Right? That means if he comes and he has relations with her against her will, she's still the wife. So says the Gemara, if so, lemakar the pasuk says v'ibem. My v'ibema teaches you two things. And he could have said v'ibem. What is ibum? Ibum is with relations. When he says v'ibema, it says number one, the relations finishes off the marriage. Number two, it could be even against her will. Because remember that to do with a Yavam and Yevama, the fact that she became a Yevama, it's against her will that she has to get married to the Yavam. Meaning it's not like a regular marriage. The regular marriage, at the beginning of a marriage, you have to say she has to agree to the marriage. By the Yibum, she does not have to agree to it, even if it's going to be against her will. Fine. Says the Gemara, Chalitza. How do we know that once she does Chalitza, she's permitted to get married to anybody? Menalan, how do we know? Says the pasuk, "Dichtiv v'nikra shemo beYisrael Bet Chalutza Nahal." He's going to be called Bet Chalutza Nahal, meaning we're going to nickname this guy. This is the house of the taking off of the shoe, of the Chalutza Nahal, Chalitzat Nahal. He says, "Shekevan shechalatz banal," was once they took off the shoe, hutra lechol Yisrael. She became permitted to all of Israel. So says the Gemara, Hadi Yisrael. This is what this Yisrael is coming to teach us. I thought we needed that which we learned of Yishmael bar Yehuda beYisrael. What does it mean beYisrael? Bevetin shel Yisrael velo bevedin shel gerim. Only in a bedin of Israel can they do it, but not in a bedin of gerim. What does that mean? Right? Obviously they changed the nusach and everything. Right? Basically, right? Obviously that's what we're trying to say over here. That there's no chidush to tell you that you're not allowed to go to a bedin of goyim. You're going to go to the bedin of goyim in order to do chalitza? Obviously not. The chidush is, right, because it says lifnei velo lifnei akol. But rather the chidush is is that even a bedin of gerim are not allowed to do chalitza. I know, but it says it in brackets. No, doesn't have in brackets. No, it says with the kovim. You have a little aleph there.
Yeah.
What does that little aleph take you? Agal to Bach on the right side. What does Bach say? Velo bevedin shel gerim tari.
Yeah, okay.
What does that mean? A bedin of gerim. Why? Because bedin of goes dekovim pashu. You know not to go to bedin of dekovim. No, not to go to secular court, even a Jewish court. But the dayanim or gerim, you can't do chalitza by them. The chalitza has to be done by regular Israeli.
Why would they go to a gerim?
No, let's say that happened to be that there's going to be the gerim dayanim there. Doesn't. No, but they're getting, they converted. Still, you're not
yeah.
Exactly, it's Yehudi get. Yeah? Okay? So says the Gemara, Trei B'Yisrael K'tivek. What does it mean, Trei B'Yisrael K'tivek? The word B'Yisrael is written twice. And therefore, since it's written twice, because it says before the Chalitza, it says, Me'eni v'min lakim lachim Shem Yisrael. Right? So therefore, what does it say? So he says, it was the Shem Yisrael is coming to teach you that when it says B'Yisrael, it's coming to teach you that Chalutza is permitted to get married to anybody. So ask the Gemara, we still mean it for something else. Amar Rav Yehuda says, we were once sitting in front of Rabbi Tafon, so Yevama came to do Chalitza, and Rabbi Tafon told us, Anu kulchem ve'imru, everyone has to answer and they have to say, Chalutz anal. Meaning, since the pasuk says it, chalutza, you have to say it kilu that's saying it twice, and therefore, how? So if you're gonna come and you're gonna say chalutz anal, it's like what we say mutalach, you know, like the 3 times. So if you have to say chalutz anal, so therefore, how do you know then that if this is what it's teaching you? So he says no. Ha'u v'nikra shemo nafka. There they learn from v'nikra shemo bet chalutz anal. So for since it's written. Right, that's what they learn. They have to say chalutz anal, and from the word Yisrael, we learn that once you did chalitza, she's permitted to all of Yisrael. She's permitted to anybody, any Jew. Okay. Next, what happens if the yavam dies? If the yavam dies, right? 1 second. So if the yavam dies, so he says over here, right? So therefore, she becomes permitted. Minalan. How do we know that if the yavam dies, she's permitted to get married to anybody? Says the Gemara, it's a kavachomer. Umayeshet ish she'i bechenek. If an eshet ish, she commits adultery. What's the punishment? Chenek, right? Strangulation. Mitata bal matirata, but the husband, right? When he dies, it permits her. Yevama is only an isur lav, meaning if a yevama does not get married to a yavam, what prohibition is there? There's no chenek. You know what there is? It's a lav, a negative commandment. What? A negative commandment. Right? It's an avirah, but there's no death penalty.
Malkut.
Right? Malkut. Any negative commitment has malkut if there has an action. Right? But there's no death penalty. So what happens? He comes and he says, so therefore it shouldn't be kol shekin that the death of the yavam should permit it. If the husband permits her, and if she commits adultery, she gets chenek, so kal vachomer that by a yavama, that it's not a death penalty, it's only a malkut, it's a negative commandment. Kal vachomer if the yavam dies, that she should be permitted to the shuk.
זה כל יוון כאילו...
I'm going to ask against the קל וחומר, מה לאשת איש שכן יוצא בגט, תאמר בזו שאין יוצא בגט. You wanted to make a קל וחומר. How do you get rid of a קל וחומר? You know how you get rid of a קל וחומר? You get rid of a קל וחומר by coming and disproving the קל וחומר with another way around. He says, 1 second, you know what? There's a difference. An eshet ish, there's another way to get divorced. You know how? Get. By yevama, does it get help? No. So therefore, what are you telling me, Keilu, that the exit is tzarich liot yoter kal? It has to be lighter. Why? Because Keilu by begidaz is yoter chamur legabe eshet ish, and if it's going to be more stringent by an eshet ish, so then if the husband dies, she's muter lashuk, and by yevama you don't do that. But an eshet ish also you have a get. By yevama doesn't exist a get. So how are you doing a kal v'chomer to the yevama? So answers the Gemara, fine. There's no get, but there's chalitza, right? He comes and he says, Hanami, right? Yotzeh b'chalitza. There's chalitza. So says the Gemara, Ela ma le'eshet ish sheken osra matira. Says, okay, fine. We have another thing though. We have by an eshet ish that the osra is matira. What does it mean osra matira? The husband, which is oserota on everybody else, his death should permit everybody else. But the yavams that she's not prohibited to. She's prohibited because of her original husband. So for when he dies, it shouldn't actually come, right, and permit anybody else. Meaning like this, one more time. When a person gets married, what happens? He gets married to her. He prohibits her to the entire world when she gets married.
Okay.
So therefore, when he dies, he permits her to the entire world. By the Yavam, it's not like that. By the Yavam, right? But he didn't prohibit her to the entire world. She died. He died. His brother died without children. So she was always prohibited to the entire world. She never became permitted to the entire. She became prohibited through the brother, and therefore now, since she's still prohibited, that she has to get married to the Yavam. Not because of that. If you're going to get married now to the Yavam, right? Is that going to permit, or if the Yavam dies, it's going to permit the entire world? It doesn't work. So says the Gemara, fine. Eshet ish yotza b'chalitza. So do a kal v'chomer the other way around. An eshet ish should be able to do chalitza. This is why. U'ma yevama sheni yotza beget yotza b'chalitza. If a Yavama doesn't get out with a get and she gets out with a chalitza, so zushi yotza beget and so kal v'chomer, the woman gets out of get, should be able to get out with chalitza. Okay, so says the Gemara. Amar Kra says the pasuk Sefer Keritut. What does it mean Sefer Keritut? Sefer Koreta ve'en davar acher koreta. We read in this week's parasha. Mekatav la Sefer Keritut. You have to write for a book which cuts off, which is a get. So it has to be a sefer which is cutting off. It has to be a sefer, a document that's cutting it off. It has to be a sefer. That's why it doesn't help chalitza. Right? So asking Gemara, get. Fine. So do the other way around it. Let a yivama get out with a get from a kavachomer, right? Uma eshetish, just like an eshetish that she doesn't get out with chalitza and it gets out with a get. So this woman a yivama that she does get out with chalitza, kol shekan she should get with a get. Says the Gemara, America. The pasuk says, "Kacha ye'aseh la'ish asher lo yivneh bet achiv." This is what you're going to do to a man that he doesn't build the house of his father, right? Exactly. So what does that mean? He comes and says, "Kacha." You have to do this. What is this? Chalitza. That's the only way to do it. Get doesn't help by Yivama. So says the Gemara, so what if there's a me'akev? When you say kacha, it has to be like this. So you're not going to do a kal v'chomer. Vayom Kippurim. It says Vayom Kippurim that the yichtiv goral. You have to do a goral. You know what a goral is? Lottery, raffle, lotteries. Yeah? And it's written chukah. Right? Chukah is mashma, that it's me'akev. It's lachok. You have to do it this way. The Tanya we learned in a braita, ועשהו חטאת, והקריב את הארון, את השעיר, אשר אליו אליו הגורל, השם עשהו חטאת, הגורל עושה חטאת, והשם עושה חטאת. What does that mean? We know that the goral is what makes a chatat and not the shem. Meaning, you take the lottery and not the calling of the name. Meaning, imagine right now you didn't do a lottery, and you just said, this is the chatat, and this is la'azazel. Right? Zul Hashem, right? And this is for Azazel. Does it work? No, you have to do the lottery. The lottery is what makes it into the which one is which. And it's not the naming. Meaning not because you came and you said, this is Lashem, or this is doesn't help. So Yachol, I would have thought to say, Valodinu, it's a Kal V'chomer. Uma b'makom shelo kidesh hagoral. And even in a place where they did not sanctify with the goral, kidesh Hashem, you are going to be mekadesh with Hashem, which means to do with a ken. You know what a ken is? For example, a zav, right? Or zava, or yoledet, and ger. They bring a korban. And the korban that they bring is birds. It's called a ken. A ken is two birds, right? What happens is they bring the two birds. One, right, but it's also the birds, right? So he says, right, the birds, right, what you have to bring is one for a chatat and one for an ulah. What happens if you didn't designate which one's a chatat and an ulah? So what happens is that you come and you just say, this one's a chatat, this one's an ulah, and that's it. Just the kriyat Hashem is already enough. So says the Gemara, if right now, if there's no goral and you come and you're going to sanctify with the naming of it, so now makom shekidesha goral, in a case where they're going to be the goral, eno din shekadesh Hashem. Shouldn't it be that right now you're going to have the name should help them? Tamulumar comes teach you the asau chatat. Yeah, what does it mean vasau chatat? Hagoral oseh chatat, ve'en Hashem oseh chatat. It's the goral that does it, and not the what, and not the Shem. Okay, and not the Shem. What does that mean? That it's going to be dafka the goral and not the Shem. So it says like this: the reason why is because the Torah is actually coming and being mima'et. If it wasn't for that, we make a kavachomen. Even though it's written, chukah. Amarka, the pasuk says, la. What does it mean, la? Vekatav la sefer Torah, la velo levivama. It's a special name in her and not in the yivama. Meaning, sefer kritut only applies to her and not to the yivama. That's why it says vekatav la to her and not anybody else. So it says ve'ima la just means lishma. It does mean lishma. You have to write a lishma. So it says the Gemara, trei la kative. There are two different las which are written. Meaning it says, so there's twice written la. Okay? So it says the Gemara, we still needed chad la lishma ve'idach la velo la velo lechaverta. I thought you still need it for two different teachings. Number one is katav la lishma. Has to be for her name. You know what it means, her name? Her name means you have to write a get for her. You can write it for anybody else, even if they have the same name. And number two also, it has to be a get designated for her and not for her friend. Okay, la velo lechaverta. So says the Gemara, the pasuk says, Bet chalutza na'al in mide achalin elo. Since it says Bet chalutza na'al, only the na'al permits her. Nothing else permits her. It's only the na'al. Yeah, that permits her. Okay, fine. Then it says, yeah, as follows. V'hai na'al le'ach yudata. This na'al comes to teach you this. Hai mi baile. Yeah, he says, I thought we needed for something else. Na'alo, eli and na'alo. How do you know you have to take off his shoe and not anybody else's shoe? So it says, na'al. Na'al riba. What does that mean? It comes and says, na'alo. Na'alo arra'ui lo, prat legadol, she'en yachol lalech bo, or prat lekatan, she'en chofe et rov raglo. The prat lemsulaim she'en lo ekev. So basically it has to be that it's big, it's coming to exclude something too big that he can't walk with it, or too small that it doesn't cover his entire foot, or if it doesn't have the, basically it doesn't have the sulaim, not just say sulaim, the sole of the shoe, it doesn't have the bottom part. So it says the Gemara, if so, nichto krad na'al, my han na'al, teaches two different things. Number one, that these halachot, that it cannot be too big or too small or without the sole, and number two also, that also the second halacha, that it's dafka the na'al that he goes out, and not with a get. Okay, 14b. Says a Mishnah. Okay? Says a Mishnah, Eved Ivri nikre bekesef v'ishtar. V'koneh et atzmo b'shanim u'v'yovel v'giron kesef. An Eved Ivri is going to acquire, yeah, he's going to acquire himself with kesef v'ishtar. Sorry, he's acquired to the master with kesef v'ishtar, meaning that's how you buy an Eved Ivri, with kesef v'ishtar, and he acquires himself b'shanim, with years, which is the 6 years that he works, or yovel, ugiron kesef, or you deduct the amount of money that he worked until now, and then he pays it all. Yetera lava mimirvia, and my also, if she gets puberty, she gets out free as well. So therefore, that's added on more than the Eved Ivri. You have a Ma'ivriya. Ma'ivriya is a Jewish maidservant. Okay? Next, hanirtza nikne b'ritzia. How do you acquire, right, the nirtza? With ritzia. The piercing of the ear, yeah, and he says v'kunet atzmo yovel, and he acquires himself with the yovel or mitat ha'adon. If the master dies, yeah,
מה אשתו?
also. איזה אשתו?
של האדון.
לא משנה. זה אדון שהוא המאסטר. אשתו אף פעם לא מקבלת ירושה, תזכור את זה. הוא יש לו אדון אחד, והוא לא יורש את העבד עברי. עבד עברי, לא כנעני, עבד עברי.
ברגע שהאדון מת?
ברגע שהאדון מת, קדיש, he goes off free.
אז אין חשש שהעבד יהרוג אותו?
לא, הוא יהודי. עבד עברי נקנה בכסף מנהלן. How do we know that you can acquire an עבד עברי with כסף? המקרא, the pasuk says, מכסף מקנתו. What does it mean? Mikesef miknato, from the money of his purchasing. I'm mentioning bekesef, that he's going to be acquired with kesef. Ashkechan, you're going to find Eved Ivri in Kalev Kochavim. That's going to be by an Eved Ivri that is going to be bought with from an Oved Kochavim. Vol bechol kinyano bekesef, since the entire kinyan is going to be done bekesef nimkali seminal. But how do you know? That means like this. Over there, it's the Eved Ivri, right? But that's going to be the Eved Ivri bought by an Oved Kochavim, because since by the Oved Kochavim everything has to do with kesef, so too the Eved Ivri is going to be with kesef. But if the Eved Ivri is going to be bought by a Jew, how do you know that it's going to be bekesef? The pasuk says v'ofdeh, which means that it says v'ofdeh, which means we learn that Adon has to help to redeem her. How did you do that? That he doesn't take the full price; he lowers the price. So, for example, you bought the Eved for $20,000, right? And now the guy worked for you for 2 years. So now when he's going to buy himself back, he's not going to buy himself back for $20,000 because that's what you paid. You have to minus the years that he worked for you, according proportionally, to say, okay, fine, now you only have to pay me whatever it is, 15 or 12, whatever, how many years, whatever it was, the amount.
But how we
evaluate? No, but that's what I said. It depends how many years he had to work. If he had to work for 6 years, let's say he had to work for 6 years.
Minimum wage.
No. Right now, you bought him for $20,000.
Yeah.
If you bought him for $20,000 and he's only going to work for you for 3 years because it's going to become Shemitah, so divide by 3. If he's going to work for you 5 years because of Shemitah, divide by 5. If it's 1 year, so it's 1 year.
Okay.
It depends on how many years it is. You divide it and then you.
What about the schedule?
No, that's no.
Hours a day?
No, we're not for normal. You're not allowed to overwork him. Remember that. Yeah.
If you eat a steak, he has to eat a steak.
So Ashkechan, we found it by Amai Briya. Because Amai Briya, she can get married with Kesef. Miknia bekesef. So therefore, since Amai Briya is acquired, which means that she's going to be Mikadesh bekesef, she can be acquired bekesef. But in Eved Ivri Minalan. How do you know about Eved Ivri? Meaning, how do you acquire an Amai Briya? With money, because you can get married to her with money. So if you can get married with her with money, you could buy her with money. But how do you know a regular Eved Ivri is going to be bought with money? So answers the Gemara. The pasuk says, when you're going to be sold to you, their brother, the right Ivri or Ivriya, and they're going to serve you for 6 years. Makish. Sometimes you can make a hekesh. Yeah, Makish, Ivri, right? La Ivriya. What does that mean? You're going to make a hekesh of an Eved Ivri to an Ivriya. So says the Gemara. So therefore, since we're making a hekesh, that's how we know you're allowed to use it with, right? With what? With kesef. Says the Gemara, Ashkechan. Right, we find this with what? Ashkechan mecharu betin. That's only if betin sold him. All of him because he's going to be sold against his will. How do you know you could sell himself with kesef? Meaning, if the betin sells him that he's going to be sold against his will, it's with kesef. But how do you know that he could sell himself through kesef? So says the Gemara, Yalif, you learn sachid. Says gzera shavah sachid tashav yeimach. So therefore, we're learning that just like the din come and they sell him, so too the same thing when he sells himself, it's going to be the same halacha. That's only going to be good according to the one that learns Sachir. But according to the one that does not learn Sachir, what are you going to say? So Amarka, the pasuk says, "V'chita sig musaf al inyan rishon ilmad elyon mitachton," which means you're going to add on the concept, and you're going to learn right the elyon from the tachton, right, with the kesh. So therefore, it says who's the Tana that doesn't learn Sachir? So says the Gemara, Hatana, who this Tana is the Tana that says, the Tanya mocheret smol nimkar leshesh, the yeter al shesh. Right? Imagine right now a person sells himself. So he's going to be sold for 6 years. Right? The yeter shesh shanim, if it's going to be more than 6 years, mecharu batin and nimkar leshesh. It's always going to be maximum until 6. That means if he sells himself, he could be even more than 6. 6 and more than 6. But with bedin, it's only 6. Hamocheret smol eno nitzah. If he sells himself, he's never going to be with an earpiece. He's not going to get his ear pierced. But if he's going to sell mecharu, right, bedin yitzah, he's going to get an ear pierced. Right, mocheret. So if he sells himself manikimno, they don't give any presents when he leaves. Achru bedin manikimno. But if the bedin sold him when he leaves, they give it to him. Hamocheret smo en rabo moselo shechaneh. If he sells himself, his master cannot give him a shivcha kanani. If the bedin sold him, his master can give him a shivcha kanani. So look at the differences between selling himself and being sold by bedin. First of all, Betin sell him against his will. Number 2, Betin could sell him dafka for 6, not more than 6. He could sell himself for more than 6. When Betin sell him, right, he gets the ear pierced afterwards. But when he sells himself, he doesn't get the ear pierced. When Betin sell him, he gets presents when he leaves the house. When he sells himself, he doesn't get presents with it. And when Bedin sells him, he gets a shivcha kenanit. When he sells himself, he does not get a shivcha kenanit. So all these are different talachot, right, that were coming and they were bringing down. Okay? Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Tovyum Mishmed Abaye, says Rav Tovyum name of Abaye, Techule Alma Yalid. Sorry, Rabbi Lazar. I skipped out. Sorry, Rabbi Lazar Omer. Rabbi Lazar says Ze v'ze eno nimkar l'shesh. He says whether he sells himself or he sold through Betin, it's always going to be 6. That's the shita of Rabbi Lazar. Only 6 years. V'ze v'ze nivtza. They always get the nivtza, their ear pierced if they want to stay for more than that. V'ze v'ze manikim lo. No, you're always going to give him presents when he leaves. V'ze v'ze. So means basically Rabbi Lazar argues on this Tana, and Rabbi Lazar says it's always selam shos. It's a bidiyuk oto davar. Whether mocher et atzmo or nimkar b'pi betin, it's tamid oto davar. It's always the same thing. If he sells himself or he's sold through a betin, they're always the same halachot. Nothing changes. So says the Gemara, Ma'ila ba kabi palgez. The machlok between the Tanakama says that we don't learn sachid sachid, and Rabbi Lazar holds that we do learn sachid sachid. So everyone learns sachid sachid. But here there's a machloket, right? In another pasuk. What's the reason in Tanakama? That if somebody sells himself, he could sell himself for 6 or more than 6 years. It says by Mechru Badin, he could only work for him for 6 years. Only this one that he sold by Badin is 6 years, but not anybody else that he sells himself. The other one, when it says Vavadecha, it means that you're going to serve him, but not for Yoresh. From here, we learn that if the master dies, he goes out free. But it says Vavadecha, he serves you, but not the Yoreshim. He doesn't have to serve the Yoreshim. The Idach Vavadecha Achrina, and the other one, when it says Vavadecha, there's another Vavadecha. The Idach, another one, he says, no, that Vavadecha, Haul Artzat Adon Udeata, is coming to be Mefayesta Adon, that it shouldn't be difficult to come and give him presents when he's leaving. Imagine right now you have somebody working for you, right? And after he works for you, you have to come and you give him a severance package, even though he's leaving on his own. It's not like you fired him. Yeah. You know, some people, they have a severance package only if you fire them. No, fire them. Even if without firing them, you come, you have to give him a severance package, right? The truth is, in a lot of works, it's like that. The person, imagine, the person comes, he works 10, 20, 30 years a company, he's going to leave, right? Not because they fired him, stop, whatever it is, or then he's not going to receive something. You give him something, you give him something. They were loyal, they worked very hard. You come and you give him something. You understand? That's what it's supposed to be.
It depends how he leaves.
Huh?
It all depends how.
There's hartza'at adon, which means that you want to make the don feel good, that even though he's letting go of this guy and he's forced to let go of him, he has to give him presents when he's coming out. So my Tama, the Tanakama, what's the reason in Tanakama? What's the reason in Tanakama that he says that the one that sells himself, he doesn't get the ear pierce? He says, says, so it's mashma, there was no shelo, it's only ozno shelo that we do it to his ear, and not if he sold himself that we would do it, right, to such a case. And the idach, and then they continue going back and forth by the other cases.